All right, we are live. Wendy, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really good. Just got off of work, so a little tired, but this will probably wake me back up.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, I think we're going to talk about a handful of different things, but I think the first and maybe main thing we're going to talk about is sexual orientation.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Okay, so I just looked it up really quick just to find the definition according to Oxford of sexual orientation. And it says a person's identity in relation to the gender or genders to which they are sexually attracted, the fact of being heterosexual, homosexual, etc. Um, okay, so there's a couple ways to look at this because we've talked about the difference between like a sexual thing or a romantic thing or a platonic thing, and let's say, and we'll get into the romantic thing, but let's say that hypothetically I accept the idea that there are those three categories. I don't feel like the romantic element would fit under at least the umbrella category of sexual orientation because there's not a sexual component.
Yeah, it doesn't. So
Yeah.
pretty much what a lot of people would say is that there's a sexual orientation and a romantic orientation. So they're both their
Mm,
own orientation.
interesting. Okay, gotcha. Okay. So one thing that I find fascinating to discuss within the idea of sexual orientation is the attraction part. Because usually when I think of sexual orientation, it would be the physical attraction. But I wonder if it should include other attraction if that attraction is sexual.
Wait, what do you mean?
Like, let's say that somebody never looks at a human and finds them sexually attractive. So, like, um, and I guess to define something as sexually attractive, I think it must mean something like in that person's mind they want to do a sexual activity with the person, or when they see them, their body becomes ready for sex. One of those two things.
See, that's where I struggle because I think this is I think the definition, like the way different people define sexual attraction is like all over, like not like completely wildly off the map, but I think they can be very different because um there's a lot of people that I don't think would define it that way.
Mm-hmm.
um Unless you like 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 if we're defining it the way you are, right? That would almost necessitate like a much larger group of people to being like to not being sexually attracted to anyone like ever, because that like that's not my experience, but that's also
Mm-hmm.
not, like, for example, my friend Cindy, like she doesn't have that experience either.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's somewhat common to like you know like to know that you're attracted to someone, but it doesn't necessarily involve actual sexual thoughts.
Okay,
Um, because that's just not something that I experience. Like I've never experienced that. Like I
gotcha.
like know like I'm in a relationship, like
Mm-hmm.
I live with a boyfriend right now, and like I know I'm attracted to, let's say, at least I know I'm attracted to men. But
Mm-hmm.
I've never like looked at a man and thought anything like that. Like it's like, oh, I'm feeling ready for like sex, or like, oh, I'm envisioning myself like in bed with them, or envisioning myself doing anything sexual. It just does not happen.
Gotcha.
But I wouldn't say that that is just like, oh, I guess I'm just not sexually attracted to anyone ever. Like I don't think I would
Mm-hmm.
define it that way. I mean,
Okay.
unless you would want to.
Yeah, well, let's break it down. Let's and you can talk about or not talk about as much as you want to about yourself. And if you decide
Right.
you don't want to talk about yourself, we can talk about a hypothetical person.
Mhm.
In fact, let's just do that. Well, no, let's. It's probably easier if I'm acting as if I'm asking you questions about
Yeah.
yourself. But if you want to branch over to talking about a hypothetical person, that's fine.
Okay.
So do you, how would you explain the occasions when you are So, like, are you saying that you are never sexually attracted to people, or do you just mean by their looks?
So for me, it's always been more of like a by your looks. I mean, okay, so like personality comes into it. Like if you let's just pretend let's take personality out of it, I guess. Because obviously there's this whole other side where you might start to find someone more attractive the more you get to know them, because that does happen. But if we're going to take that out of it, my attractions feel just like more of like a visual, like aesthetic kind of a thing. Like,
Okay. Well,
um,
actually, can I rephrase my question? I
sure.
thought of a good way to ask this.
Okay.
Let's imagine our world is how it is. We got the amount of people we have in it, and it just is how it is. But the difference is that, let's say, in our world right now, nobody has any interest in sex with anybody. So, um, every human you've ever met, none of them have any like desire to have sex. They're not sexually attracted to anybody. That's just a thing. But because we want the species to continue, um, males donate sperm, and then the women that want to have babies, they'll go get that sperm and they'll have babies. But nobody wants to have sex. Okay.
All right.
And also, I'm going to pause that there and ask a separate question and come right back to it. Would you
Okay.
say that in general, if somebody has an interest in something, then a friend of theirs or a partner or whatever um, might do that thing even if they're not interested themselves? Like, let's say one of them likes to go ice skating and the other one doesn't really care about ice skating, but they just say like, hey, will you go ice skating with me? They go with them. Same thing where somebody wants to go see some martial arts movie. The person doesn't care about martial arts movies, but they're like, I'll go to a movie with you.
Yeah.
As long as both people want, like, as long as both people are consenting to these actions, there's nothing wrong with encouraging somebody to go ice skating even if it's not their favorite thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want
Yeah.
to get that out of the way. Okay, so let's go back to my hypothetical. So nobody has any desire or whatever for this situation. Now let's say you are exactly who you are. Everybody else, they have no desires whatsoever. And I'm going to learn here what your desires are, if you have any, in this area. So if everybody just got partners with people that they want to spend the rest of their lives with, and they do their thing, and then you ended up with the partner you have, and he has zero need to ever have sex, in the same sense that somebody might have zero need to ever go ice skating, but they might go ice skating.
Yeah.
In this world where nobody does this, nobody has any interest in this, but somebody could say like, "Hey, I kind of want to do this thing. Are you up for it?" How would you say that in this world that you would act upon or have any interest in sexual activities? So, reminder, you are yourself.
No. Yeah. I
Everybody
mean,
else
yeah.
in the hypothetical
Yeah.
is a
Yeah. Yeah.
different version of
To
themselves.
be okay. Wait. Wait. Can I clarify something?
Of course.
Um, does this include like masturbation?
It can include anything. Yeah. So
So like no one
you
else can
are
go.
yourself completely.
Okay. I mean, I could see, like, I honestly, like, I could see just getting by on, like, masturbation once in a while, and
Gotcha.
that's it.
Gotcha.
Like, I would probably still do that, but because again, I'm me.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think I'd be fine in a world like that.
But would it be your preference over like in again in the same sense as this like ice skating thing, where this a partner of yours might not have any personal interest in the thing, but if you said like, "Hey, you want to do this thing that'll make me feel good or whatever," do, are either of those different than each other? Like, is there a thing where some part of you is telling you that this person and their personality and how they make me feel is making this activity different? Or for you, would it just be that you don't find anybody any kind of sexual attraction, like whether it's
Yeah.
personality or whatever, but you like the outcome of the activity? Is that it for you?
Um, it's a little hard to really grasp the question, but
Hmm.
I I mean, I would say it makes a difference being with someone, like like how do I put this? Like I may have an interest once in a while to feel like doing that since I'm in a relationship with someone,
Mhm.
but if I'm like it's hard to specify this.
Yeah,
It's hard
okay.
to know how everyone
Let's say
else
you were
feels.
gonna do a week of by yourself and then a week of with this other person, and let's imagine this other person, they're fine with it, but they don't have any personal interest in it for themselves. So we're just talking about your outcomes are identical for these 2 weeks, but 1 week is just you and 1 week is you and another person. If you were gonna rate those on a scale of like, oh, there's a good chance that most days on this week it would be a 9 out of 10, and most days on this week it'd be an 8 out of 10 or an 8.5 or whatever. Like, do you imagine that your desires would be one versus the other for that outcome?
So that they'd be different between the 2?
Like so when you think of getting the outcome that comes with the actions we're talking about, whatever outcome you get, when it comes to that, would you assume that one of those weeks would be a higher rating on your scale of what benefited the outcome?
For me, the purpose is, like, just fostering closeness and
Mm.
intimacy. It's not for me, it's actually not about, like, physical desire, um, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, so if the other person had no interest at all, and if it's not about the outcome that you received from that activity, would you need to do that activity like ever again for the rest of your life?
With
If there was a hypothetical way to get that closeness and what you're talking about
the same but
without
yeah,
that.
yeah, I guess I suppose if yeah, if you're taking that, like yeah, that, like, that because for me, the outcome is, like, close is, like, the intimacy, the closeness, like, the bonding or whatever that I
Mhm.
feel from it, at least. Yeah, if you take that out of it, um, yeah, I'd be fine to never do it again, I think.
Okay, okay. I keep thinking as we're talking about this, like which the questions like and
Like, well, to
how
never yeah,
personal
like,
they are.
I'd be fine to never, do that with
Like,
another person.
so if you were alone on an island forever, you would have no need to do anything yourself because that's just not you'd get your desires elsewhere, climbing trees and running on the sand, and that's not a desired outcome that you care about. That's probably the best way to look at it. Let's imagine you're alone.
Can we do you wanna use the actual words here? Because 'Cause I'm getting a little confused.
Oh, I guess I'm just referring to orgasms.
Okay,
Or
alright.
or any desired feelings
Yeah,
during
no, I just wanted to
sexual
make sure we were
activities.
on the same page.
Okay, yeah, 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 sorry.
I do get the urge once in a while to, like, masturbate
Mhm.
for that outcome. I do.
Okay.
Like, I do get that. Like, it's not like I don't ever I have that, but it's not really, like it's not really connected with it's not really connected with people or, like, a it's
Yeah,
not really connected with a person very
yeah.
much, like, with other people. It's not like I'm gonna start like, I don't like, for example, I don't necessarily, like, fantasize about other
Mhm.
people and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, so, like, a feeling can be nice, and then having, because we're social people, having loved ones or just people around while we get certain feelings could be nice. So if you eat a bite of ice cream, that's gonna make your serotonin levels do this thing, and you feel good. Now, that'll feel good by yourself, but it'll also feel good if you're next to somebody you care about who also is eating ice cream, and you're both getting serotonin levels, and you're also both getting the pleasure of being near each other.
Yeah.
So in the same sense that you can do this by yourself activity, the sexual activity, but you can do the exact same thing with a person just hanging out with you while you're doing that. And so, separate from the benefit you get of the fact that you like the person that's there, um, are they benefiting that outcome, the orgasm outcome, in any way that's different than yourself? Because it sounds like no, But it's also, these are things that a lot of people just don't think about the details
Oh,
of
no,
how they
they
affect
don't.
things.
Yeah, no, it's true, they don't. I guess maybe I would be inclined to kinda say no. Again, for me, it's mainly about, like it's mainly about, like, making the other person happy and, like and then
Mhm.
just being close and intimate, and it's like, it's something that you don't do with anyone else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so for example, let's say that your partner had, no personal interest in this at all, and whenever they were happy, it was talking to you or eating ice cream with you or watching movies with you or going on walks, then there wouldn't be anything to that activity that you would specifically need to do, because you're getting the same. You would just do all the things that you desire and they desire. And in this hypothetical scenario, this partner, let's say they don't desire that thing, but you desire everything you currently desire, you would probably just live the rest of your life with this person and you guys would have fun and all the stuff, but you just wouldn't do anything sexual.
Yeah, I think I could imagine that being a realistic a realistic reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
I think, to
well,
me,
listen,
how.
listen,
Oh,
it's
sorry,
once
go on.
in a while, I it might be different. Because
Mhm.
like, for example, like my cycle, like the monthly cycle and stuff, like, sometimes I'll have a bit of that hormones will, like, go up, and I'll maybe have more, like, desire than normal, but it's not
Mm, mhm,
it's not most of the time. Most of the time, it's like I'm talking to you about it. So there might be
mhm.
a couple days out of the month where maybe I would feel like, what, I actually do kinda, like, crave this for itself with
Yeah.
but it's just not, like, the norm.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So aside from that last detail, like, I feel like when it comes to how we look at the term sexual orientation, that it would just be that you would be something like asexual in that sense. Because I definitely don't think of the idea of um, masturbating for pleasure as part of what would make somebody part of a sexual orientation.
Well, true,
The
not
Yeah.
necessarily a specific orientation, no.
Yeah, yeah. And again, not that it matters. I think it's very important. Like when we use words, they mean a thing. We get an
Yeah.
idea across, and so I think it's very fascinating to look at words and what they mean. Um, and so yeah, yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider myself, like, somewhat of, like, a sexual being, just not there's, it's kinda like, like a spectrum kinda, like, where
Mhm.
some people are, like, very hypersexual and some people are, like,
Mhm.
way less so, like,
Yeah.
like, there just are. There are people who have, like, very high libidos, very high sex
Mhm.
drives, and there are people who have very low sex drives, and I would not say I have no sex drive. It's just
Mhm.
on the lower side. That's how it feels to me. Um,
Yeah. Okay. Do you think, like, it's always strange to talk about hypotheticals where somebody is not with the partner they're with, which when I ask this, it doesn't. Yeah. Anyways, if you would you let's say that your partner magically didn't exist in this world and that you might date random people throughout your life or find other partners or whatever, would you ever base finding a partner on anything with sex on the mind,
no.
or that just have zero connection to? Okay,
Yeah,
that makes
it
sense
it
with
would
what you've
Yeah,
explained.
it would have zero connection. The wanting to have sex with the person would completely come after the initial, like, feelings towards, I mean, partially their looks, like, partially, like, the way they look, but mostly their personality. Mostly personality,
Mhm,
how we vibe, if we start forming an emotional connection that, like, becomes
mhm.
romantic, that would be what would lean me into, like, relationships, sexual relationship.
Yeah, yeah. And so what you'd be doing trying to find somebody, everything you're looking for, you're just looking for in a partner completely separate from the sex. And
Oh,
then if
yeah.
you find that partner, then it's the having it's not that the being attracted to their personality makes you become sexually attracted to them. It's that being attracted to their personality makes you want them as a life partner. And then since you found this life partner you like, also you have some slight interest in sex, and therefore
Yes.
that's who you'll have it with.
Yes, yes, yes. That sounds pretty accurate, actually.
Gotcha.
And as we know, like there are a lot of people out there where like the sex comes first, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And for me, it's the sex comes last.
Yeah. Yeah, because people are on the spectrum of how much they want it, no matter who
Exactly.
they want it with, and some
Yes.
people are really high on that.
Exactly. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Like I almost like it's almost as if there's not an orientation, but I guess maybe there is a good reason to have a term like pansexual or whatever, just referring to that you truly don't care about anything about the individual when it comes to that activity. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I've never really thought about it to that extent, because a lot of people, when they talk about something like pansexual, they're referring to the idea of that they've noticed that they can be sexually attracted to anybody, whether
Basically
they're
anyone.
man, woman, trans, whatever,
Yep.
and that they've just discovered that they can. So in this case, there's no attraction needed there, but there is still the very minimal desire for sexual activity. So yeah, that's interesting. Okay, well, I guess we could put a pin in this unless you have any more thoughts on that, and hop over to the romantic element of it.
Yeah, no, we can do that.
Um,
We can hop over.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, well, and so you mentioned something in a message last week that I wanted to touch on, but I can't remember exactly what it was. It had something to do with how you feel a romantic connection to your partner.
Yeah.
Um,
So, if
yeah,
I may,
yeah.
so I remember saying, at least part of it. I remember part of it being about how, like for me, there's a clear like if we were taking sex out of it. So if we're taking that out, like that's not an element. There's still a clear difference in feeling for me between Jeremy and my best friend Cindy, where like I meant, like for example,
Mm,
I think I had mentioned that I don't consider, like there's a difference between kissing someone and making out. you know
mhm,
I don't consider just kissing, or like just kissing someone, to be sexual. I
mhm,
don't know how you like feel about that, because that was another thing that I wasn't sure how you were going to like feel about that,
mhm,
but I don't consider just like kissing someone, um again, not in like a really like sexual, like like making out kind of a way. I
yeah.
don't consider that sexual, but I still just would never want to like touch my lips against my friend Cindy's. Like it's
Mhm.
different, so different. Like,
How
and
do
for
you
me,
feel when you touch? Well, actually, can I read a definition real quick?
sure, sure.
Because it'd be interesting, because I think colloquially we all use different words and terms to mean different things, and we shouldn't necessarily change how we use them. I just think it's fascinating to look at definitions, and I think a lot of people don't know this about the word platonic, which was created by Plato, and Plato basically defined the differences between like sex and non-sex or whatever. But so the definition of platonic is of love or friendship, intimate and affectionate, but not sexual. So, of love or friendship, so it could be love or it could be friendship, however you want to look at that, intimate and affectionate, but not sexual. And so, the
Yeah,
reason I like to have these separate categories is I imagine any interactions any humans can have with each other are on one of these two large spectrums. So, you have everything that is sexual on the sexual spectrum, and everything that is not sexual on the platonic spectrum. And
mm,
then anything can be branched off into other categories. These are just umbrella categories. So if there is something that is romantic and sexual, you could have part of this sexual spectrum has a chunk of romantic and sexual. And then anything that's romantic, but there is zero sexual to that romantic, would be on the platonic umbrella category. And you don't have to agree with that idea, but that's what makes sense, especially while looking at this definition. But it just makes sense to me to have possible umbrella categories for everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like I was saying, I mean, I don't think people use the term platonic quite in the way you're describing, like, in general,
Mhm.
but, like, you know, like, I think I had mentioned that, you know, you use the word love in so many different ways, you know,
Yeah.
like, you love your sister, you know, you love
Mhm.
your best friend, you love
Kate.
your, you know what I mean? So, like, the way that I would say I love Jeremy is a different kind than towards, like, my friend.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's just,
Let's
and
figure that out.
well, yeah, because like, how do you actually define that, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Oh, well, okay, so let's look at it. So you're saying that you have no desire to put your lips on Cindy's lips. Hopefully, she's cool with us chatting about her name. Is she the one that I talked to a couple
yeah,
years ago? Okay,
yeah.
cool. It'd be interesting to bring her on a separate one later to talk about all these things too. But okay, so you have no interest in kissing her on the lips, but you potentially do with your current partner. Um, how do you view that as different than the sexual things? If he, let's say it was like that hypothetical I gave you, let's say that he is exactly who he is now, but he has no personal desire to ever put his lips on anybody. He doesn't need any lips touching his body at all. And he's not against it. He'll go ice skating with somebody, even if he doesn't care about ice skating. Same thing here. He might watch a movie that you want to watch that he doesn't care about because you want to watch it. But if he didn't ever care to have lips on him, do you have a desire to put your lips on whoever your partner must be or on this partner? Or is it partially for his pleasure?
It's part it's I mean, like, it's hard to separate. Definitely partially for him, but again, for me, I view it as like it's a thing for the relationship, like, for it's like the closeness, like, the special, like, close bond that you have with a
Mhm.
romantic partner that you don't, I don't know, like, that you don't necessarily have with someone who's just your friend.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
so let's say when you guys started your relationship, let's say he never kissed you and that he's the hypothetical person I'm talking about, where he is exactly who you know him, minus let's say minus anything sexual and also minus the idea of kissing. So we're just
yeah.
going to focus on the kissing here. And he like tells you like, "Oh, I really like you. I want to start dating you." This is a really great friendship or not friendship, like whatever it is. This is I want to date you and maybe we can move in together at some point and we can raise this pig together and all these different things. But he never mentions the idea of kissing. He never does kiss. Would
I
you
would've brought it up. I
like so if you would have brought it up and maybe you would have brought it up because you would have felt, wait a minute, most people kiss. Does he even like me? And then you bring it up and he goes, oh, well, I never need to kiss, but if you want it, I'll kiss you. It's not a desire I have, but I have nothing against it, so I'll do it. If he were to say that to you, and you knew he was being honest, let's say like he couldn't lie and you magically knew this, he's being honest. He really cares about you. He likes you. He wants to grow old with you, spend his life with you, but it's just not anything he ever cares to ever do. But if you wanted to, he would kiss you for like 5 hours straight every day. Um, would you feel a desire to kiss a person with your current want, even though knowing that it's like take it or leave it for him?
Yeah, no, I think I would, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, I
I
would. No, I
thought you were
would,
going to
I
say
would.
no, so that makes this very
No.
interesting.
Yeah, no, I would. For some reason, like, that feels more of that's more of, like, something that I actually feel like I inherently, like, would wanna do.
Okay.
But again, specifically towards the person I'm with, you know? Like,
Do, do you notice if it's different than other touch? Like if you're snuggling on the couch, like your hand touching his hand or his hand like
no, it's the same.
okay,
It's
body
of the
touching
same,
body.
yeah, it's of the same kind of thing. Like, I guess what you might call, like, what someone might call, like, romantic things of, like, cuddling and,
Hmm.
I mean, maybe just someone would use a different word than that, but, you know, like, cuddling, yeah, holding hands, like, like, normal kissing, like, stuff like that, like, things that are things that are this like the like a bonding thing that probably what's that brain chemical that
Oxytocin.
yes,
Yeah.
that I'm probably releases like oxytocin, which,
Yeah.
bonds couples together, like that would release that chemical.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. Okay. And so it's weird because like we have our cultural things we do in our society where other cultures do things that we might think are weird because we're just not used to them. So we
Mhm.
think things like, oh, even though I have no interest in sexual stuff, I might want to kiss this person, but I also want to touch their hand, but I wouldn't do that with this person. But maybe we just think we wouldn't. Now I don't
I think
know.
it's really hard to say if it's inherent or if
Hmm.
we view these things as that way because of the way we're socialized. Obviously, you
Mm,
grow up seeing people kissing and holding hands and cuddling like all over the place. Like that's just a
yeah.
thing in society. So, there's definitely a good possibility your brain wires those things onto like, your, if when you want to be like romantically close to someone.
Yeah. Well, like here, I would almost guarantee this, but I'm not sure. And we can't really test it out unless you want to upend your whole life. But if you weren't dating the person you're dating now and you were just on a dating break and your friend Cindy convinced you to be roommates and you guys were just living together as friends and you're just being friends and like every night, you guys might watch a movie together or something. If she just told you like, hey, hopefully you don't find this weird. I have no interest in like dating you. You're just my friend or whatever. But I've noticed that like whenever I would date people before, I really enjoyed the skin to skin contact, touching their hands, their lips touching my lips or whatever. And it just like made me feel good. So I don't want to date you or anything. But Wendy, could you are you up for every once in a while just giving me a kiss or when we watch a movie touching my hand? Like what I wonder if this would happen would be that since you're not having that oxytocin fulfilled from your current partner and you're just living with this person and therefore you're not off touching many people, that feeling of your skin touching the skin of another human, that oxytocin would just naturally happen. And you, as a not sexual person that's not desiring the sexual stuff, but desiring oxytocin, because we all do, um, if you would feel almost identical with it being Cindy as with your current partner, if you were in that situation.
Well, see here, okay, so here's where I would differentiate it. First of all, I'm not sure if I would. It's obviously impossible to know. Like I'm in my current situation, so I'm imagining that it feels like, oh, like I'd probably like not want that. But if I'm really,
Hmm.
really, really trying to like put myself in a situation where I don't even know Jeremy and stuff like that,
Hmm.
um, I could maybe envision, and it really depends, because like me and my friend, like we're best friends, but we do clash in a lot of ways. So
Hmm.
I'm trying to ignore that too. I could see something like that, um, creating romantic feelings. Not that it would remain platonic, but that it would start to like turn into romantic feelings. Because
Hmm.
um like there's a difference, like when someone talks about like developing a crush on their friend, that
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, all the only thing that changed is that now I want to like have sex with them. That's not necessarily what it is. Like developing a crush on someone is like developing, like that you're friends with, is developing romantic feelings. And for a lot of people that will include like, oh, like I'm starting to think they're hot, and
Hmm.
I would want to have sex with them. But for me, that's different, where it's like you could start developing romantic feelings where they weren't there before. And I think that's like, I don't know, I just think that's possible. Like I've had experiences where there's like a new, like for example, there was many years ago when I still went to church. I remember there being like this new guy that started going to the church, and I swear I at first kind of thought he was kind of ugly. um but over a time, like over a few months of time, I like as I got to know his personality, I
Hmm.
started finding him physically attractive. Like it started
Hmm.
to change because of like feel like getting to know him, like kind of changing my feelings. Like I never had like a
Mm.
hardcore crush on him. It wasn't like that much, but
Mhm.
like my view, like my actual attraction to him changed from getting to
Mm.
know him. So, and again, like the sex was never in there, but like my but I and it's hard because like I find people physically attractive or unattractive or somewhere in between. I can look at someone and kind of think, well, because I know the word in society and think like, oh man, they're like really sexy or like they're really
Mhm.
hot or something. Like I
But
might.
what do you mean though? Do you just mean that they're pleasant to look at versus not? Like if you saw two flowers and they had very
Yeah,
different
no, it
looks to
is different.
them,
It
you
is
might
it is
like.
different. Like it's not quite the same as seeing like a flower. It's very hard to explain. Like because
Well,
you
I
know,
know it's
like,
not. I'm saying like you can tell the difference between something being pleasing to your eye versus something not being pleasing to your eye, but it's not making you necessarily need to be around it. You just see it and go, "Oh, that looks nice." Like you can see a baby and go like, "Oh, that's a cute baby," or "Oh, that's an ugly baby."
yeah. So for yeah, so for me, I think that like where physical attraction comes in is where like, oh, if I was single, I would be maybe interested in like maybe going on like a date with this person, maybe just to get to know them. Like if I was looking for someone, let's just say I'm looking like I'm in the market or something,
Mhm.
like I'm single, I kind of want to find a relationship. Um, then like seeing someone physically attractive who where I might say like, oh, they're really hot, like that would just make me want to get to know them and see if anything is there
Mhm.
that would get develop further.
Gotcha, gotcha. Somebody in chat, really quick, had made a comment that in for the Greeks, they had different words for love, like one for friends, one for family, one for various different things, and then also mentioned like wondering if I think they're wondering if you would consider yourself demisexual, which I think you might have said
Yeah, I
right before you are.
actually yes, I think I would say probably yes. I've definitely identified that way before.
Hmm.
Again, these terms are very new, and what they can specifically mean for different
Yeah.
people can be a little different. Um, because again, it's very hard for me to differentiate how I don't know how other people actually feel. So for me, all I know is that I do find different people attractive as compared to other people. Like there are people I find unattractive, people I find, but people's personalities affect my attraction to them even more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well, let's break down this attraction thing. So, this person that you're saying you saw at a church or whatever, when you first saw them, just looking at them, in the same sense that you could see a baby and go, "Cute baby, ugly baby," you're seeing something being aesthetically pleasing. Let's
Yeah.
set aside the sexual side of it. You're saying that this person at this church, you just saw them, no talking to them, no overhearing conversations of theirs, nothing that made you think at first they seemed like a douchebag, so I was unattracted to them.
Right. Yeah.
It's just physically,
Yeah.
you would describe them as unpleasant to the eye, to your eye.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I would say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then after you got to know their personality, then you're saying that you thought it was interesting because you noticed that you felt more attracted to them. Now I'm kind of trying to figure out what exactly is happening here because yeah, like if I saw somebody and thought they looked like very attractive, then
Mhm.
I would see that and it'd be awesome. And if I overheard them talking to somebody and they just seemed like the worst human, I would instantly just be like, ugh, I don't want to like be around this person. I might go like still as far as people I'm sexually attracted to, that they're attractive on many different levels or whatever, but I would be unattracted to them as far as I am not being pulled their direction. I don't want to spend time with them. I wouldn't want to date them. I'm unattracted in that way. And so I guess that's the type of thing that's kind of interesting to figure out. Is this person that if you were just talking about their aesthetics, you thought like, oh, if I was going to talk about if I found this person or this flower or this whatever to be visually attractive, I don't find this person to be that. But then when you hung out with them, you're attracted to them as in their personality is pulling you toward them. You would want to spend some time with them. But are you thinking that it's also making your mind view their face as aesthetically pleasing? Or do you think that humans are just complicated and
So
that's not happening?
genuinely, I that's what it seems like to me. Like,
Mm,
I don't as often have an experience where like I find someone, because when I find someone attractive, it isn't just the face. I do like notice the body. I can notice curves and stuff like that. So it's not like I'm only looking at people's face. Like I notice like the whole body and like I can like, oh, that's a very attractive figure. Like I can
mm,
I can notice that. Um, so maybe it's a little bit more of like people's faces that change in that way, because like I have
mhm,
also had an experience of the on the opposite way. Like there was when I the same place I met Jeremy, there was actually another guy who worked there too. And so they both worked there, and I found Jeremy and this other guy, like both of them, I found them both attractive at first without really knowing them. And
mm.
then as I started working there and like being around them, the other guy's personality was just like terrible, just like ugly
Gotcha.
as anything. And I literally started to find like his face less attractive. And it wasn't like a choice. Like it didn't feel like I mean something your brain does, I guess. Like, but and Jeremy like got even more attractive because like I liked his personality a lot.
Mhm.
Um I guess I can't really say that it would be like, oh, like if let's just say I see a woman and her figure is really nice. I don't think that I would start thinking her figure isn't nice anymore. But for somehow the attractiveness of someone's face will change to me.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think there is something to that. I don't if I had to guess, I wouldn't think that us humans are truly finding people more or less attractive physically. I think it would just be that the other elements are so overwhelming that it's making us just view the entire human differently. But
Yeah.
where like so you could talk to two different individuals on the phone and you could go like, oh, this person, I'm really like attracted to the idea of conversations with them, I want to have as many as possible, or this person I don't at all. And then you could see pictures of those two people, and then maybe the opposite direction of who
Yeah.
you would view as attractive.
Yeah.
And if you just saw images and said you were attracted, and then when you get to know somebody you find yourself becoming more attractive, I would guess there has to be something where it's just that the personality and how their personality meshes with your personality, that makes you just like in general attracted to them, where like your mind's kind of just like getting over the physical
Maybe,
part.
maybe, yeah, I think that could be possible. Like, and like, people are so wildly different. I know, like the situation you just said, where like, let's say first you have these two conversations, and like again, you really are attracted to one person's like the way they talk, their voice, their personality, and their way they, their conversation. And the other person, you're just like, oh, I'm not vibing with this person at all. And then you
Mhm,
see the pictures, and it's opposite. There are people who would where it would be like, okay, you have to pick one. Like let's just say, like you have to pick one to like to be with, to have a relationship with, let's just say, or to like date for like 6 months or something. There are
mhm,
plenty of people who would be like, well, I'm choosing the person that I like them on the phone. Obviously. There
mhm.
are people who would do the opposite, be like, no,
Yeah.
I need the physical attraction. I'm going with the person who I find, even though I don't like the conversation, I have to have the physical. There are people
Mhm.
along that like spectrum going either way. And there are people who maybe are more in the middle where it's like, oh man, it's so hard to choose.
Yeah.
That exists. Like it's so everyone's so different. And I'm
Yeah, no, that's
definitely
a good point.
yeah.
I would say just off that alone, potentially the further you are toward the asexual spectrum, the more likely you are to have a better relationship. Potentially, just
Yeah.
off of that. Because if
Yeah.
people are making choices based on their desires they can't control, they're more likely to make mistakes in that
Yeah.
area
Mhm.
of relationship maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't
I would agree.
know.
I would agree with that. Like, for example, I know, I know someone who does rely more on the how much they initially find someone they want to date. Like they rely on that more. Like, sorry, let me say this better. Um, the initial physical attraction they rely on more than I do. So there would be moments where they would say like, "Oh yeah, like they're on dating apps. Oh yeah, like the conversation was pretty good, or like the text conversations were like really good, but I saw the pictures and I'm like not physically attracted to them, so like I don't know if it'll work out." Whereas for me, I'm like, okay, wait, no, but if the conversation was really good, like you have to at least give it a shot. Like why wouldn't you? Like it doesn't, so what, you're not like a physically attracted, as long as you don't find them horrifically ugly, like
Yeah.
why would that be such a hindrance? And so for me it was just different, like for them it is a hindrance. Like they need the physical attraction to like move forward, whereas I less need that to move forward. I
Yeah.
think, I think if I genuinely found someone very ugly, yeah, I think that would hinder me.
Hmm.
But it's just way less important to me.
Gotcha. Yeah. 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 It's interesting. I'm trying to picture. Okay. So let's hop back onto the romantic element real quick. Cause like I just imagine, so different people can have different friendships. And I just feel like the idea of, like, let's say you have a partner that's going to be the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and you want this is what you want. But also, you just make a random friend here. And then that friend, you feel so happy when you're around them. Like, you just want to hang out with them as much as possible. You love talking to them about everything. And you're just like, yeah, just have this strong connection. You get like all the dopamine levels because you're having such a good time. If your life partner, let's say you completely remove anything sexual whatsoever, looking at those two people, this good friend that you make, that you have this good friend, or this life partner, I can't picture what the large differences of these two
But this,
things.
no, it's no, but this sort of thing happens, especially to women, where they will be with someone and then make a friend, and if they are like, if they really really, like you said, like this connection is so strong, they will start, the romantic feelings will start to degrade. This is how stuff like this happens. It'll start to be taken away from the relationship they're in, and they'll start to develop a crush on the friend, and then an
Mhm.
affair might happen. Like
No,
that's
that's true, and like part of my stance is I think that people that are in serious relationships, that they want to spend the rest of their life with that person, that it actually might be best to not have friends of whatever gender they're most attracted to, probably. I'm just referring to the idea of how to separate what we would call a good friendship versus a romantic relationship by removing the sex completely. So let's say
yeah.
that in neither case there will ever be anything sexual connected to it. It's just the idea of, this person truly wants to spend the rest of their life with person A, and then they make a good friend in person B. And in both cases, they love hanging out with both people equally. They're gonna grow old with person A, but they're gonna have this friend as long as they do in person B. And there's no sexual stuff in either case. I I just don't understand what the difference between those two relationships are, besides the decision to spend the rest of their lives with them. And we
I
don't have to
mean,
focus on it too long, but I think I,
well,
I, I would love to be
yeah,
convinced that this thing called
it's,
romance is a thing worth having its own label.
yeah, because I think, how there are some things that like you 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 know it when you experience it.
Um,
Like let's say you're trying to you're trying to describe a color to a blind person, someone born blind.
okay.
Okay, so for me it feels a little bit like that, where it's like, I don't know if there's a way to use words to extremely accurately define these things. I think it's more of like a feeling, and I think different people can have slightly different definitions within themselves of like romantic versus platonic. That's it. That
Mhm.
doesn't have to be a concrete, objective thing. But I think when just when you know you're feeling it, you know you're feeling it,
Mm.
because there just is, like, for me, there's a difference between um having a friend and then it's starting to become more. And that
Mm.
more doesn't have to involve sex, because you can feel that. You can feel there is a feeling. I don't know if maybe you don't experience it, but
Mhm.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying there is a difference. Like people talk about it all the time, of that, like that change, that like, oh, this is starting to feel like more. Oh, this is starting to feel like more than friends. I want to be more than friends. What does that mean? People say more than friends all the time.
Well,
They're
usually they're referring to sexual stuff
No, I don't
or a
think
decision
so.
to be a partner,
Yes,
to
to be a
commit.
partner, to be a partner, and that,
Yeah.
I think, is where the romantic feelings come in, because it is not always like about sex.
But it doesn't, there's not a must in there for it to be a romantic element, because it's not always about sex, but it's about a commitment of recognizing we are of this species that gets to about this age before we die, and we could either decide that we're going to group together to have two people say, hey, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you, so we each have somebody, like security in a sense of, we each have somebody to grow old with. Because if we just like randomly dated different people all the time, then there'd be a large amount of people that wouldn't grow old with people. So I think there is something that we like in this idea of, if we truly value this thing and dedicate our lives to growing old together, then we can ignore all the other things. Like if you truly love your partner and then they get in a car wreck and lose a couple limbs or whatever, like that's your person to grow old with. It's not like, oh, I'm not attracted to limbless people, so I want to go find a new partner. We just like grow old with people. So when you make that comment about the idea of, I want this to be more than friends or whatever, to me, I mean, obviously that can mean whatever the individual wants it to mean, but it could either mean that they want to go from no sexual stuff to sexual stuff, or they want to go from, they haven't started committing to grow old with a person, to now they want to start growing old with the person, or something like it, start
Well,
on
I
the
think
path.
for some people that can mean going from no sexual stuff to sexual stuff. I think it
Mhm.
can, but again,
Well, here,
like
let
I
me give you an example real quick, of how it becomes tricky for me. So like, okay, so I'm 39, and I had a best friend in my like late teen years, maybe the middle of my teen years. Anyways, for about like 12, maybe somewhere between 10 and 15 years, that it was I there was no other human on earth I wanted to spend time with. This was my favorite person. We just hung out. We were so close. We'd watch all the movies together. We lived in the same place. We just like spent every second of all the time in the world together. But that's all it was. It was like just the best, closest relationship ever. And now that I'm not friends with that person, like I miss that. I almost like I mourned that experience, because I, you know, that would have been a cool experience to always have. And so like the only difference I can imagine between that and another person that would be a life partner, like I could have, that person could have been my life partner. It could have been just somebody that I grew old with, but I'm just like not in a sexual way or whatever. But it was just a really good friend. But the only difference between that person and another possible life partner is I happen to not be asexual. So there would be a person that would have that best friend vibe plus um the sexual aspects or
Mhm.
whatever. So I'm
Okay,
trying to figure out where the romance comes in, because what on earth could
two
romance be?
okay, so really quick, I've got 2 things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Number 1, for clarification, so you're married.
Mhm.
So let's just say, hypothetically, you and your wife were never gonna have sex again, like
Okay.
no sexual stuff at all. So you're still like life partners, like you're live together, but like that's gone. And then
Mhm.
you have another really close friend and you feel like a very similar friend closeness with that person,
Mm.
you would consider your relationship with that friend and your wife to be pretty much the same, aside from the fact that you're living with your wife.
Yeah. So if they became the same, I would consider them the same. And then the
Wow.
only difference, well, I mean, I'm just saying, like,
No, it's
literally what's being said. So,
yeah,
so no matter what happened, I would, with my values, that if that were the case, I've told her a billion times that if that ever were, like, because we talk about philosophical things all the time, that if there was ever that point where, like, that was like she became asexual and that was like how she felt about life, I like that wouldn't affect me wanting to spend the rest of my life with her. That's just a decision I have, and that is what it is for eternity.
yeah.
For my eternity, anyways. Now, if I like had a friend that friendship just became what we could objectively look at as has met the same like level or standard or whatever, then that
Yeah.
just would be what that would be. It would have done it, and therefore it did it. And then both of those would not include sexual things, and both of those would be what they are. And one of those people would be the one I'm spending the rest of my life with.
Okay, so let me continue this real quick, but then I have a separate thing
Yeah.
that might help. But okay, so there there might be some people who would feel like that and consider themselves on the aromantic spectrum. Because where there's obviously like the sexual spectrum, and then a lot of people use the romantic spectrum as a thing. You can be aromantic. A lot of people like do say they're aromantic, that they don't experience romantic feelings. They only experience like sexual attraction
Mhm.
or like platonic, and they don't experience romantic. So it's very interesting that like someone hearing what you're saying might try to say, "Oh, you might just be aromantic and not realize it,"
Mhm.
because it's just so difficult for me. It's like, but like romance is a feeling. Like I don't know how to explain it with words,
Mhm.
but it's like it's there, and it feels like you just don't like you're not grasping it because you don't feel it.
Yeah, that could be.
Possibility. I think that could be possible. Also, the other little point I was going to make um, is, let's just say two elementary school people have like a crush on each other. That's not sexual.
Correct.
I wouldn't consider it sexual. I would consider it romantic. That's like in the romantic realm, kind of like. And again, romantic feeling doesn't have to. It doesn't have to involve like sexual stuff. They interlink. They cross into each other because most people are sexual and romantic. Most people are both. So they
Mhm.
intertwine. And as you get older, the sexual part integrates because you go through puberty.
Yeah.
But I
I
feel
so
like the romantic part starts younger. Like what is having a crush on someone? It's not
Yeah.
just like that. I remember having a crush on someone in like third grade. I had a friend, but I had a crush on someone and it just was different. Like it felt different. Like I
Yeah. So so
so
so yes. So again, I want to point out you could be right, but I don't think you are. Um, so when it comes to kids, it's complicated because I think one thing that's happening is like humans look at other humans to figure out how everything's working, and then like so because I have an 8-year-old daughter, and so I get to see what happens when her friends are over and they're talking, or if she's talking on the phone, and I don't know if they're intending on me to hear the things that whatever, but she's right at the age where all her friends are talking about people with crushes or whatever, but this is all brand new to her. It's brand new for us to experience her talking about it and all this stuff. And I think part of the thing is people see what they see on TV, and then they'll like they'll think that they're supposed to feel these certain ways. So I think people go around and be like, oh, so and so has a crush and so whatever. And then they see how people act about that. And then when they hear that somebody has a crush on them, they act a certain way. So a big part of this, I think, just comes down to brains trying to figure out what our culture is doing. So it's hard to know exactly what kids are feeling or wanting. I definitely agree with you that.
I don't, dude. I don't know. I don't agree with that because it almost sounds like it's still, that's almost sounding to me like you're just not comprehending having ever felt romantic feelings.
Maybe.
At,
I mean, I know when I was a kid, like in second, third, fourth grade, that kind of thing, I had like big crushes on people. I
yeah,
can't really think back exactly to figure out a way to analyze that because I know that it wasn't sexual things. It was just like
right.
I was calling it a crush, but I don't know how much of that was due to how we act based on our society. Um,
I'm
but
convinced I'm convinced it's like actual like that romantic is like romantic feelings like are their own kind of thing. I'm
yeah.
convinced. Yeah.
No, it definitely could be. Now part of it is we have different things in our culture that makes us feel different ways. Like for example, like over the past like 15 to 20 years, it seems like it's become more acceptable for like girls that are friends or women to like link arms and be really close, or when they're at parties and everybody's getting drunk and stuff, like girls will just like make out in front of other people or whatever, where our society would frown on that kind of thing for men. And
Right.
another society might have it the opposite way. And people are reacting to it based on what they're witnessing. So in another society, let's say this in Canada or whatever, that it was the opposite, then some women would just never do it, where some men that in our society would not even think about it. They would just be like, oh, okay, this is something that since other people are doing it and I ponder it, it actually sounds fun. So I'm going to kiss my other man friend at this party. Um, and so I think a big part of how we act is based on our society that we're in. And so the friend I was telling you about that was like the closest person ever to me, there was nothing sexual, but there was also nothing that we could link to like oxytocin, like you were talking about. But like if in our society that was totally fine, then that person, even not dating them and doing nothing sexual, if we randomly like while watching a movie together, like touched hands or kissed or something as friends, then it like I wouldn't view that any different than what I did have with that person, other than now we have added oxytocin. And I
Yeah,
think most people would view that as romantic.
well, okay, so people might view it as romantic with no context or like with no input from the from the other people, but
Yeah.
you would be the one. You two would be the ones like or even just individually, you would be the one to say if it was romantic or not. That would not be me
Mhm.
to place that on you. That would be for you to say I am feeling a romantic feeling or I am not. Like if
Yeah.
two girlfriends kiss each other just to show off or whatever,
Mhm.
they are not probably not unless one of them has a crush on the other one or whatever. They're not
Mhm.
feeling romantic feelings about that. You don't like it's not action. Like you don't choose to feel romantic towards someone. It
Hmm.
happens. It just happens to you.
Okay, so if you have these two categories of friends, and one of them, somebody like holds the hand of their friend, and this friend they want to hang out with every single day, and holding the hand doesn't change anything. Now they just feel the oxytocin, they really like that, and they want to keep hanging out with that friend every day, but they say they aren't feeling anything romantic. They just like really love the feeling of the oxytocin that happens from holding their hand, and this is a person they have always wanted to spend every day with and they still want to. And then in this case you have somebody that they love spending every day with their friend, and they touch their friend's hand, the oxytocin happens, and then they say, I do feel romantic. What's the difference between these two?
Well, I think that okay. So I can't know for sure, but I think
Mhm.
that could stem I think that could be where romantic feelings come from. Like I think what you are describing is potentially romantic feeling, but
Mhm.
there are
Like
like
oxytocin itself. In the
I
same sense that sexual feelings are controlled by elements of our mind that want to reproduce
yeah,
and
I kind of can't prove that.
cycles and
Look,
stuff.
that's the feelings come from chemicals in your brain.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say, I mean, again, I don't know all the different chemicals. There could be other ones at play. Let's just
Mhm.
say it's just oxytocin. Yeah, I think that could be where the romantic feelings actually stem from. They clearly, if they exist, they stem from the brain in some capacity, some kind of chemical in the brain to some capacity. And I literally just think you're describing, like, you're trying to describe like a inherently romantic situation as if it's platonic when it's not, because
Mm,
platonic would be not that. The platonic would be
mhm.
that you don't have this like strong urge to like hold hands and like, like, I mean, I
What
get like,
in the same sense that there are sexual people and asexual people, you might have people that desire oxytocin and people that don't. I'm guessing most people, almost all people do. But let's say hypothetically, there were the same amount of people, just maybe different people, that don't desire oxytocin. When they touch hands, when they whatever, they don't get any oxytocin, so they don't have any desire for that. Then yeah, I'd agree. So what I'm describing is that you can have people that want to have sexual acts with people or not, and then you can set that aside, and then say you can have people that enjoy the oxytocin that they can receive from individuals. And I'm
no,
just saying that separately, the other third category of friends that aren't touching skin to skin at all, that is its own feeling that you have that feeling for or whatever. And I'm just saying that this thing that happens with oxytocin, if you add that to a friendship, I'm viewing that as still just a friendship, I guess.
no, I think that could cause romantic feelings to develop.
But if somebody enjoys the oxytocin, are they is maybe must that be romantic? Maybe oxytocin and romantic are synonyms. Maybe they should be, and some people just don't realize
It's
it.
possible. It's possible that it is something like that. Maybe for someone who is not feeling romantic feelings, or let's just say someone who's aromantic,
Mhm,
maybe that sort of stuff doesn't either maybe doesn't produce the oxytocin to begin with, or that
mhm,
they don't react the same way to oxytocin. That could be possible. Like, what if someone who's aromantic but very sexual, what either they only get the oxytocin release from sexual things, but not quote unquote romantic things.
mhm.
Um, maybe, or again, maybe their brain reacts differently to it. But that could be possible. Like, I don't know the science behind it, but who knows?
Yeah,
Because I mean, there are people who say that they are aromantic, and there are people who are like, I'm very romantic. There are people who are very romantic and asexual. There's just,
yeah.
and it's, again, I really think with stuff like this, it can, to an extent, it can come down to believing. Like, it can come down to just
Mm,
believing what other people are saying they experience. Because there are a host of other people who say they experience things. There are people who say that they experience seeing someone who they find very sexually attractive and just would be down. Like, they would just be down to have sex with that
mhm.
person without getting to really know them. I have
Yeah.
never experienced that in my life, but I'm not here sitting here being like, I don't think that feeling really exists,
Yeah.
because it doesn't make any sense to me. No,
Mhm.
clearly it does. I believe people when they
Oh,
say that
I
happened.
I I believe anything that is being said to be a feeling. I just have not understood yet what people mean when they
Right.
say it.
And
So
I'm
if somebody were to say that sexual thing, like if somebody were to say, I want like so me, I could never have a one night stand with a person. My
oh yeah,
brain is
yeah,
does
me
not work
neither.
that way. I'd have to get to know the person, all the different things.
Mhm, mhm.
Even if you removed possibilities of like pregnancies and STDs and all that, still I just like that's not how I was hardwired.
Yeah,
But if
yeah, yeah.
somebody said, "Oh, whenever I see people, I just want to go do this act and then move on my way," I'd go, "Okay, I know what that act is, and I accept that people want to do the act." And then you're saying that you don't need to get to know them and that you
Okay,
don't
wait.
need to ever see them again.
So
So that's all there. It's
yeah.
information and it's there.
Let
Romance isn't
let me let
information for
me
me.
let me interject real quick.
Yeah.
Um, so what you're describing, there like there wasn't a term there, to an extent. What you just described yourself as is, to an extent, what a lot of people define as demisexual, where you would not want to have like any sort of, well, you wouldn't want to have sex with someone until you get to know them.
Hmm.
Like that, like they like, and again, different people define it somewhat differently. Some people define it like that, where it's a little looser. Like maybe you could find someone like you wouldn't maybe find someone attractive, but you wouldn't consider doing sexual things with them until you get to know them first and develop more of that like emotional attraction. That
Yeah.
is
Well,
what
so what one thing is, I think that demisexual is how it's usually referred to, and just like other words, I really think that it's important for things to have an official meaning, instead of like, because you want to hear somebody say something and go, "Oh, I know what they mean," and so I personally find it a bummer when different people mean different things by it. But from what I gather, the most consistent, decided thing on demisexual is that, and I don't think many truly demisexual people exist, by the way. I think somehow, maybe, possibly you are, but I don't think many exist. And so, because here's the reason. So, from my understanding of the definition, it means that you are never sexually attracted to somebody by looking at them. Um, you have to get to know their personality, and that makes you become sexually attracted. It's not that you could look at a magazine, see a picture of a person and be like, I am sexually attracted to that person, but I would never date them unless I got to know them first. It's that you can't see sexual attraction at all
so
in
really, really I gotta pause.
okay.
I want to go back really quick again to
Mhm.
that the definition, how we're defining sexual attraction.
Okay.
Because let me just say, let's say I can look at someone and I can feel like, how do I describe it? Like I can find someone's body and someone's face very attractive and just like wow, like wow. Um I don't know I don't know how else to say it, but would you not like, this is my biggest struggle on whether to call that sexual attraction, because it feels like it's linked loosely. It feels like it's loosely linked to like sexual desire, but not concretely.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
I,
Here's how I describe it. If you're ever going to do a sexual action by yourself and you never picture or look at the face or body of a human you've never met, like you've never actually like talked to, then there's no sexual attraction there.
that's how you would define it.
I That's how I think it must be defined, but I might have
Well, see, because
worded it funny.
different people, because
True,
there are
true, true,
people
true.
who disagree with. There are people who would probably disagree with you.
Mhm. Or
Um,
sorry, no, what I'm referring to is the thing that you were asking about, because you were saying that when you look at people, you might view them as like aesthetically pleasing or whatever. I guess what I'm saying is, if you're trying to figure out if when you look at people, if you ever on looks alone are finding their looks to be sexually attractive, that's the only way I could imagine defining that. Would be if somebody like had a picture of somebody, let's say somebody that preferred men or something, when it came to like partners, and they saw this picture of like a model and they never heard any personality of this person, but looking at that picture, that would make their body feel a certain way. Or if it didn't make their body feel a certain way, when their body naturally felt a certain way, that picture could affect how they do their solo activity.
but no, I
um,
get what you're saying. Yeah, I don't think that ever happens to
Yeah.
me.
Outside of that, I think it's just that we humans can view people as aesthetically pleasing. Again, if we see two
That's
babies and we find one ugly and one not ugly, it's not because we're sexually attracted to babies. It's
well,
because we can see things and our natural thoughts, even if we're wrong. One person could see the ugliest baby in the world
okay,
according
wait,
to other people.
I agree with that. However, there's still, let's say, to me, there is still and this is a good thing, but still a difference between like seeing, let's say, like a really cute elementary school girl, and she's just like, she's really cute, like just inherently aesthetically pleasing, like she's just got like very good proportions, just very cute. But
Okay.
then I might see like a woman and be like, oh wow, like very like attractive in a different way, you
Mhm.
know,
So
like
so
not
there's
the same way.
one of two things is happening here. You are either being affected by your society and what you recognize that other people see as this like sexual thing, that you're recognizing that she fits that category. Maybe she's a mixture of what you find aesthetically pleasing and what people in your society are viewing as sexual. Either that is happening, or there is an element of you seeing this person and something sexual happening in your mind about this person. But
It
I don't know if it's that
might
second thing.
it might, I don't know. It might be very, because it does feel like, again, it feels like maybe adjacently connected. It feels adjacently connected to actual sexual attraction. It just, my mind just doesn't go that extra step to actually think about sexual things.
Does it make you think that if you were single and if you were going to find a person and if they happen to have a great personality, that you would think it would be nice if that person was the person? Something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, like if they
Okay.
look like if they looked like that, yeah, that would be like a bonus.
Yeah, okay, that would be a bonus. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there might be low grade sexual attraction there.
I
Yeah.
think there is. It's just so like adjacent or like low grade, but that's why I haven't adopted the term asexual for myself. I just
Yeah.
don't think it's true. I do think I have sexual attraction. It's just so different or much lower than what a lot of other people mean when they say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um because
Well,
I just yeah, yeah.
a lot of people, it's kind of interesting because people dabble in different things, whether it's like some people might think they're bi but they've never experienced a relationship with another person of the other
Yeah,
gender.
yeah.
And some
Me.
people, and so it's hard to know the difference between maybe like a kink versus an orientation or whatever, because you
Mhm,
might think like, oh, that seems like it would be fun, but 9 times out of 10 that's not the route you'd go or whatever. So it's kind
mhm.
of interesting to figure out if you would have, if there would be anything, like let's say you and your partner split up, if there's any reason to believe that you wouldn't have an equal likelihood of having a life partner who was also a couple times a month sexual partner that was female. Like, is there anything in your mind that's driving you more towards male than female?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
I think, well, okay, so, first of all, I've only ever dated 2 people. So there's
Mm-hmm.
not like, and also this was a high factor. I grew up in a very homophobic religion and household. Um, and there are a lot of people who grow up, especially who grow up in households that are like that are very homophobic, where like you your mind just doesn't even entertain even it being a possibility that you might like any other gender, because like first of all, since let's say you're bi, you already do like the opposite gender. So like there's no like let's say there's like a lesbian growing up in a homophobic household. That's going to inherently be a problem much sooner, because that lesbian's not going to be attracted to boys at all and is going to start feeling like a sense of like, ooh, like there's something going wrong here, fat like faster than someone who's bi might just like, oh well, I'm just going to be focusing my attraction to boys. And I think
Mm.
that that's what happens to a lot of bi kids and like bi people who grow up like that, because you can focus on your attraction to boys, and just like because it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like you're grown up to think like gay people go to hell, like
Yeah.
that's not something that that's how I grew up, like if you're gay you're going to hell. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not even going to compute. So then it wasn't until after I got out of the religion where I started to like really think about it. And it was funny because there was like a passing comment where like I made to my friend Cindy, where I was just like, yeah, like when other women like just like make you do a double take, and she's just like, no, just like it doesn't happen to me. And I'm like, it doesn't. And she's like, no. And I'm like, maybe. maybe there's something going on here. So that just
Mhm.
kind of like started me like thinking about it. And then, after a certain amount of time, like I just kind of like I was like, okay, like I'm settled on this. Like I was able to parse out the fact that like I view I find both men and women attractive in like the same like in very similar like the same kind of way. Like there's really no difference. And I I've had so many dreams of like dating women. Like I've had so
Mhm.
many dreams of like being with a woman or like dating a woman and stuff
Do you
like
think it
that.
would be weird if you never get a chance to? Like, do you like how do you value the idea of like, do you view your partner now as somebody you want to spend the rest of your life with? Do you look at like polyamory and these different types of
Yes,
things as
so
interesting?
I've thought about it. So I definitely went through a bit of a phase where I was discovering, being bi, where I was just like, oh no, like yeah, like I might never get to like I might it, but like oh it's too late. Like like oh it's too late. Like I didn't get the chance to like actually like experience like dating both, and sometimes I do feel like oh damn, like that does kind of suck. However, I like my current relationship is good, and like
Mhm.
I firmly have like I mean as long as things stay good, I don't have any like intention on breaking up the relationship just because I haven't gotten to try dating a woman. Like it's just not
Yeah.
that important to me. Like it wouldn't be, like I don't know, like if I was um like I wouldn't break up with Jeremy because I haven't had the opportunity to experience a bunch of different other kinds of guys. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kinds of men
I
that
think
like
oftentimes when people think about that kind of thing, they're recognizing that as sexual people and like further near the sexual spectrum than like you might be, they're recognizing that since they enjoy sexual
yeah,
things and sexual is very specific,
and then it would
that
be
they
different.
haven't experienced that with the other gender.
Right,
And
right.
so the idea of
That's
like
important to me. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that it's probably a lot easier for you in that regard, where some people might think like, "Hey, if I don't experience this, that's gonna really bum me
Yeah,
out."
and I can see that. I can see that. Like if let's just say I was more sexual and like sex was much more important to me, then I could see it being much tougher. Where it's like, oh, but I would like it. Like I've seen videos of people on YouTube where like the wife, for example, discovers she's bi, and then she talks about it with her husband, and they decide that not necessarily they're going to break up, but that the husband sometimes will be like, oh, you know what, I want you to be able to experiment with this just so that you've been able to do it, because maybe they're both very sexual, so he would understand like, oh yeah, like I would want to be able to experience that. So that happens, but
Mhm,
like for me it doesn't feel necessary because that wouldn't be the important thing anyway. Like the sex part would just not be the important thing at all. It would
mhm,
be the who the person is. So since I'm already happy in my relationship now and we have like such a good thing going and we're like, like he's such a good person, like this just to me it would be a complete waste to like end a good relationship just to like try to experience. And neither of us are polyamorous. Like we're both
mhm.
monogamous. Like it just wouldn't feel right to
Yeah,
like I didn't feel right to have him experiment with someone else. Like even if he found out he was like bi, I don't think I could. And I know he's the same. Like he wouldn't want me to. Like I would.
yeah.
And again, I don't feel like I need to.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, uh, yeah, that's very interesting, and I think I've pondered different aspects of, like, what seems like downsides of various things like polyamory, and I think what seems to be ideal for humans in general would be being monogamous. It seems like it's the best approach if your desire is to grow old with somebody.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that. Some like I don't understand polyamory because I'm obviously not polyamorous. I'm monogamous. But I
Mhm.
mean, there are people out there who, say they're polyamorous and they have like multi relationships. Sometimes someone's married and they'll both each have like another partner. And like
Yeah.
I could never I could never be as
Yeah.
like that, but like other people are fine with it, and it's just like,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, to me, it just seems like a risk not worth taking if you don't want to risk your possible life partner. Um,
I agree. I agree, and I think that agreement is coming deeply from being monogamous, of just like, oh,
mhm.
it could this could ruin the relation. Maybe for certain polyamorous people there is no risk. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know, I just don't know, like it
Yeah.
feels risky to us because
Mhm.
it would be a risk to
Well,
us.
I think the risk must be there, and I'll explain why in a second. But you might be right. To some people, they wouldn't care about the risk. It's
Mm.
not that to some people there wouldn't be a risk. It's but some people might not care about it. And here's why: because you have two people. Like, let's say you have a partner. Let's just say they're both female, and they decide they want to be polyamorous, where they each have a girlfriend. So all four of these people are female. Let's say you got person A and person B. So person A, let's say that we can just know that for them it's no risk. Their mindset, they can do whatever they want with as many people, but their mindset is this is their life partner. Okay. And so that's where that first idea of potentially there's no risk. But the problem is that person can't control this person. So if this person thinks, oh, I just want to have a side girlfriend, but I want to spend the rest of my life with this person, and then they hang out with that side girlfriend, and that side girlfriend, they become so close with them. Like they love both of them, but they never could have thought in a million years they would love this side girlfriend this much, and they want to spend the rest of their lives with both of them. So if they all agree to do this thing where these two spend the rest of their lives together, but they also can have their side partners forever, that's great. But if this person decides at some point, like, hey, this was fun, I liked it, but now I want to just be me and you, this person might go, oh, I mean, I don't want to lose you, but I've now developed this connection with this person that I can't lose. And so this person either can't have this now monogamous thing they want, and they have to either deal with all three, or they have to leave the person. And so that's where I think if there's more than one human involved, there must be an inherent risk.
Okay, so I agree there probably usually is a risk, but I do also think that in this scenario, you kind of described someone going from being polyamorous to monogamous, which is generally not what people say happens. Like people will be like,
Mhm.
I'm like some people will be like, I'm polyamorous, and that just it can't change because it just
Mm.
won't. Like that's just who like that's another orientation of being. Like you're either monogamous or you're polyamorous, and you don't shift. So I think that's where a lot of people are like, no, but it wouldn't shift. Like that wouldn't change. Like you would always be polyamorous. You wouldn't suddenly be like, you know what? Never mind. I'm monogamous now. Like I want to be monogamous now. Like
Hmm.
polyamory and monogamy is also kind of viewed almost as like an unchangeable orientation. And maybe it's not, like you don't have to agree with that, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've been in the online spaces where they talk
Mhm.
about this sort of stuff, and that's how they're talked about. They're
Yeah,
talked about
that
like
makes
that.
sense. It's kind of like the idea of somebody saying, like, it's not my preferred pronoun, it is my pronoun. Like, I think people they want the thing that they're viewing as to be considered valid, and they think that if it's worded a certain way that it's not being taken seriously or not being considered valid. But
Yeah,
I
there are people who say like, oh, they've tried being monogamous, but they discovered that they're polyamorous and they can't be in a monogamous relationship. That it
Yeah,
just doesn't, like it
it
just
sounds
doesn't
like people that just, they like hooking up with a lot of people and they don't want to commit or whatever. But either way,
you can put it that
that
way. It's kind of like derogatory sounding, they would
mhm.
probably say, but
Yeah, well, a romantic's kind of the same way. It's like my orientation is that I don't want to be romantic with people. I just want to have sex with them, and then no
well,
romance
no,
or
no, no,
whatever.
it's not. It's not about one. You just said I don't want to be romantic with people.
Well,
It
you
would
don't have a desire or
be
whatever.
it
It's
would
just
be
usually thought of as a negative thing when
no, I know
guys
it
go to
is.
bars and have one night stands and randomly hook up with a different lady every night. Like, we didn't
Wait, wait,
realize this
wait,
whole
wait, wait,
time.
wait. There's a difference between a man who has the capability of feeling romantic feelings and like doing stuff like that between someone who doesn't have the capability of feeling romantic feelings at all. That's the what aromantic is not a choice. It's
Mhm.
you not having the actual ability to feel romance, to
What if you
have
just strongly don't want it? Because aren't a lot of these things based on our wants? We date people based on
no,
our wants. Like,
no, 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 absolutely not. No, no, no. If you could have, let's just say you have a romantic crush on someone that you really don't want. I do not want to be feeling romantic feelings, but you are because you can, because
but
you
you
have
could
the
you
capability.
could either date them or not date them, and you're gonna do that based on your want. You could go, I don't want to date them because they're a bad person. I just have a weird, uncontrollable crush or whatever. When it comes down to it, like these romance and sexual things and all these things, it all comes down to wants.
Your actions are based on your wants. Your feelings
Yeah.
are not.
Oh, correct. Your feelings are not. But
That's
so
different.
if somebody's
That's what I'm
wants
talking
are
about.
to not have anything that you would describe as romantic, and they just want to have all the sex with all the people,
But they
then
might but they might develop romantic feelings for someone
yeah.
against their will.
But if they've never had a romantic feeling for somebody and have no care of that, there's nothing wrong with them describing themselves as aromantic, right?
Well, no, if they've never felt romantic feelings towards someone, then there's a high chance that they are aromantic and they can't.
Yeah.
They can't. Like they cannot. Not
So
that
what do
they
you
don't
think's
want to.
okay? So what do you think's happening with the people that say like a man that every year has sex with like 150 different women and just they like having sex with random people or whatever? Are you saying that a good amount of those men are not aromantic? They feel romantic feelings, but somehow they force themselves to kick
There
those feelings out?
there are well, okay, no, no, no. You don't necessarily develop romantic feelings with someone you're having sex with. There you know
Yeah.
how like there are situations where a married man still loves his wife but has an affair or cheats, has a one
Mhm.
night stand with someone and says it wasn't, it was just sex.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
would be that would be him having romantic feelings for his wife
Mhm.
and having sex with someone who he has no romantic feelings towards.
Gotcha. Yeah. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess
He has the
I
ability,
guess I just kind of find it
to feel
funny.
romantic feelings is the point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just kind of interesting because it's usually labeled as a bad thing when people just go around and sleep with random people, but it happens to fit
But
something like the
listen,
category of
just be
aromantic.
wait, just being aromantic doesn't make you do that.
No, it
Being
doesn't make you
aromantic,
do that. It would just mean that that
it
would be
might
a term for
make well, okay,
somebody.
wait. If someone there are people who are aro ace, so they're both. So they're
Mhm.
aromantic, but they're also asexual, or they just have a very low sex drive. They're gonna be aromantic, but maybe just also just not care to be like sexual with people or anything like that. But then there are people who might be aromantic and be highly sexual. They could have
Yeah.
very high sex drives. That's what would drive that
Yeah, that's
behavior.
what I'm saying. So like there's a group of people. I mean, it happens with women and men in different ways or whatever, but just looking at men really quick, the men that just go around having one night stands and they don't call the women back and that kind of stuff. Um, like it's funny because somebody could view that as negative, which it often is, and
Well,
somebody equally and just as valid could say, "Oh no,
wait, wait,
he's just
wait, wait. Hold
he's just
on, wait, wait.
aromantic."
I have to cut in. I have to cut in.
Yeah, go for it.
Here's the huge difference.
Okay.
Um, how you're treating the situation. If you're a, let's say you're aromantic and you have a high sex drive, if you're going around pretending like or implying, hey, yeah, there might be something here, we might end up getting in a relationship, let's go on a date and I'll make you feel all special so that I can get you to have sex with me and then I won't call you back. That's shitty behavior. That's not just being aromantic. You could have this, you could be aromantic and have a high sex drive and you could be fucking honest and
Yeah.
find other people who are in a similar, like, who also don't want a relationship and they just want the sex, because there are other people like that. So you would be honest, you would be an honest person, you wouldn't be a douchebag who would
Yeah.
just like, that's the difference.
Yeah, no, you make a good point, and you won that round for sure. Um, um, Yeah, no, this stuff is very interesting. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think if there's a different route to take any of this. Is there anything we haven't covered, or maybe something you wanted to talk about?
Oh man, it's tough to think in the moment. I should have had my notes. I didn't have my little note thing with me. I forgot it.
Mm,
So I don't have that. But I think we touched on a lot. Um, I mean, the only thing I could if we would probably veer into a whole nother a completely different topic potentially, which we might
mhm.
not really have time for.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I don't know if I can. Hold on. Let me think. Hmm.
You're fine. Well, I did think of one thing. It is off topic, but it was a comment I had remembered that you did on a video I had done, and
Okay.
I do only have about 10 minutes. But
Yeah.
I thought it could be interesting to briefly touch on this, and then we can talk about it later if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So I talked with a lady named Anne. I can't remember her last
Yep.
name,
I remember
and
that.
you commented on something I said where I said I that I don't know how to view something like the idea of women being um, pressured by society to want to please men.
Oh, right.
Um, and so I guess I'm curious to hear your stance on this, considering that in general, to me, it seems like most people like to please each other, like with all kinds of things. Like men really like to fix things. If they see somebody's car broken down and they know how to fix cars, they'll go out of their way, be late to work to try to fix somebody's car because they enjoy just like, yeah, I fixed this thing. I enjoy it. Same thing when it comes to bedtime activities. I think from many people I've talked to of both genders, they every people usually they can't get it out of their head. They care about pleasing the other person. So I think pleasing in general is something that's liked. So there's that. And another thing is people are just born how they're born. They like what they like. They feel how they feel. If a woman or a man just naturally doesn't have the instinct to want to please somebody or to do anything. They don't have the instinct to want to whatever. Then they're just born with that. I don't view that necessarily as a bad thing. So, with those two things in mind, do you think there's something happening in society, in our society, in our country, live in the culture that we are in the United States over the past, let's say, since both of us have been alive? That there's some pressure to please for women to please men in a way that's wrong or bad or different
Well,
than the other way around?
I guess it depends on what you mean by pressure because, like, I think a lot of it comes down to, like, implicit, like, not explicit pressure, not like, like a girl is growing up and like you have to please all men that you see. Like, I think it's like in media and stuff, like the male gaze and like men's pleasure are prioritized in a lot of media.
Can you give
Um,
an example?
okay. Honestly, like I don't know if you remember the whole thing. This was how long ago was this? Now I was alive. So the whole what was it called? Like the video game stuff where like they were um what's her name? There was a woman who would talk a lot about video games and about how a lot of video games like they inherently sexualized the women characters in the game, and
Okay.
it wasn't equal. Like it wasn't equal. Like they were clearly made to please men, like the boys that were playing the game.
Yeah.
Like the costumes, like the body, the figures of
Mhm.
the women characters in like the video games.
Okay, so yeah, whoever's making this, so a game's being made. Let's say the game's called Zip Zap, and in this game, the men just all are men wearing military uniforms or something,
Like yeah,
and
like
then women all look like super attractive. They got big boobs and they're in like tiny bikinis or whatever.
right,
And the
like that
people that
wasn't
made this
practical.
game want they felt like from what they've seen from the numbers is that they're targeting this game towards men. They're hoping men buy it because they want to make money off the game and men will want to see computerized video game bikini ladies. What's the problem with this?
But it's not. So I don't. Okay, so
There might be a problem. I'm not saying there's not. I'm just curious what you think the problem is.
Okay, so I think for me it's that it's it it was the overwhelming majority of video games, like of at least with like realistic, somewhat realistic looking like characters, like maybe not like Mario Party, but
Hmm.
um or like for example like movies, like it just comes to mind all of the instances in media in like movies and stuff where like it's like the hot woman, like they're like the way the camera pans on the woman like to show her butt and to like go around and like show her like her cleavage and stuff, and they show the guy like looking at her, and it just like so much less happens the other way around. And
Yeah.
movies are not necessarily just like, well, no, but we're making movies for men. Like it's
Well, so
that's
here's, I think when it comes to most movies, like, I mean, obviously there's the art of movies. I love movies. I've actually been making independent films since I was 13. I love the art of cinema. But for the most part, when movies are being made by big companies, it doesn't matter if they're putting sexual things in of sexual men, sexual women, if they're putting in like pro LGBT or anti LGBT. Most movies being made, doing any actions they're doing what they think will make the money. So
yeah,
it's
but
and so if
but
they make a movie that has a bunch of sexual men in it, like Magic Mike, the Channing Tatum stripper movie or whatever, or just any movie that has like Chris Hemsworth or Ryan Gosling with a shirt off or whatever, those movies might make money for that reason. They'll make some money. But if more movies that have women taking more of their clothes off make more money, they're going to like, basically what I'm saying is, if a ton of money could be made by sexualizing men more, nobody's sitting in an office going, I could get this million or $1 billion, but I just want to keep sexualizing women. The, we're talking about the richest people ever that can go and buy their forever prostitutes, and they
well,
don't need to
so
like have that movie have it, you
I
know?
mean, I think this all like, okay, this is a very complicated subject because
Yeah.
I think it all intertwines with like higher like systems of like patriarchy and misogyny, and just like men being prioritized in society in general, of them being on the top for like so much of history, and
Mhm.
like men having the power, like men held, technically I think they still hold more of the power,
Mhm.
but like historically they're the ones holding the power, they're the ones dictating what's going to make the money, who's going to be able to
Dictating
like,
what do you mean by dictating what's going to make the money? Like, so if movies come out in
here,
theaters and then people want to
let me give you a
okay.
small example. I hopefully this will make sense. um People sometimes talk about, let's say the difference in like wages, and they'll say, oh well, women just gravitate towards fields that just pay less money. Well, they gravitate, but who decided why the fields women work in get paid less? Because that's
Gotcha.
that's part of the issue. Let's just say teaching. When most school teachers were women, who's to why should it be that teaching is inherently much lower paying than, let's say, a type of job that most men do? Teaching is extremely important.
Mhm.
Like it's so important for, like, it's so important for society. I literally think that being a teacher should be a very high paying job in society. But
Yeah.
I do think that because historically women were the ones who were pushed to be the teachers, that because of the structure of like, like men being in power, it was devalued. That position was devalued because women were the ones holding most of the position there. And
Yeah.
I don't have like scientific stats on this right
Mhm.
now. I could try to actually look it
Yeah,
up
you're fine.
at some point, but that's an example.
No, I think this is great because I too I'm no expert on this, but I think it'd be cool if we learn as we go. We can send each other articles and read studies, and maybe we can both discover a lot of things we don't know. The first thing I would say to what you just said, what little bit I do know, is there's a handful of different types of professions. And that go under different umbrella categories, kind of like we had the umbrella categories of sexual and platonic. You have a category of what's driven by the market and a category of what's created by the government. So if you have governmental jobs, that's going to be something where the perfect room to say most members of Congress that control governmental jobs are men. So maybe if this governmental job pays more and it's mostly men, and this governmental job pays less and it's mostly women, maybe there's some complaint there. So if you take something like people that work for national parks, that's created by a job created by the government, and what they're paid is decided by the government. Same thing with schools, that might be created by the government and that's decided there. But something that's decided by the market, where if there's a job to invent new cell phones, or if there's a job to grow the sweetest fruit, or whatever, there is these different things. People have these companies, they have the jobs, and the market's going to decide whatever makes the most money is going to make these companies hire the best people at this job, that all these different things. So we can't compare um, people that are in jobs controlled by the market to the governmental ones, but we can look at ones that are controlled by the market that women do more of, and see um, why they might be making more or less here or there. But it's a huge complicated topic and we might have to save that one.
We really can't parse this out right now.
Mhm. But
But
as far as I think there's a handful of topics about men and women in our society that I'm not convinced are the issues that some people think they are, and I think it'd be interesting and worth looking into. Like for one, and again, it's like kind of smaller topics that don't matter that much, but I've heard a handful of women, including my wife, complain about women's pants not having pockets in them,
oh
oftentimes.
my god.
Right? Do you
Yeah.
strongly dislike that and you want pockets in your
Let me just
pants?
if you wanted me to get into the clothing issue, women's clothing is like less quality, but I swear to God, if you get like a woman's flannel, quote unquote, and a men's flannel, like you go buy the men's flannel, you're going to be wearing it for 10 years. You're going to be wearing the women's one for 2 years because
Mhm.
it's thinner and just don't even get me started. Yes,
Yeah,
it's very annoying. It's stupid. Yes, I have qualms. I have
yeah.
qualms with
But
this.
I would say the same thing here. I would say about the film industry and a whole bunch of different things, where when it comes to the market, and there can be good and bad elements of the market and capitalism, but when it comes to the idea that somebody is making a product to sell, and those people in almost all cases want money, they're going to do what sells. If they make pants with pockets and they put like
There
if
are
it
so many like women who though do complain about the pocket thing. So why is it still happening?
well, there's a bunch of clothes with pockets. This is I'll tell you exactly why it's happening. I haven't even looked into this, but I can guarantee that I would put all the money in the world on this answer for why it's happening. There there are pants with pockets, right? Like some.
But I just want to also acknowledge
Mhm.
that when they do have pockets, they are inadequate pockets.
So,
So
some are, maybe most are. So there's some pants with no pockets. There's some pants with inadequate pockets, and then there's some pants with adequate pockets. These exist, and they're all at the stores, and they're doing their thing. When people are looking at what sells, they'll go like, "Oh, people are buying these like crazy, so we're going to make more of these." And they're buying these like crazy, we're going to make more of these. And they'll every once in a while slip in something new and try new styles and dabble in things. If it sells, they make more of that. If it doesn't sell, they make less of that. If women are just like, I will give all the money for pockets, companies are going to give you pockets. The problem is they might be wanted and desired, but when people put them on, especially now, I think you could agree to this, that most women wear like super form fitted clothes, whether it's leggings or workout pants or skinny jeans.
that's
Everything's
actually that is changing. Actually, I don't know if you've
you know,
noticed.
well, yeah, and things do change over time, but one problem seems to be that pockets in like skinny jeans and stuff like that they're so form fitted that the pocket makes it look funny. So that could be an issue there. But I mean, think about it. If me and you right now could start up a new company where we just make women's pants be exactly like the current pants that are loved, but we add pockets to it, and we could just make billions of dollars because women want these pockets. Like, what's the likelihood that that could be so easily done by any human, but nobody's doing it? It's because when a company figure out what sells and what doesn't sell, they don't make the thing that doesn't sell.
Yeah, I mean,
For
I do.
some reason, it becomes a talking point, but there is no way on earth that basically they're just not buying the pocketed pants.
Well, I think it's more complicated than that, but I also think, like, for example, you mentioned like, oh, well, we put pockets in these skinny jeans or whatever, it's going to make them like look weird. Well, I mean, to an extent,
The purchaser would think they look weird.
well, no, I know that.
So I wouldn't think they look
But,
weird.
but I, but I think that that's again, that's a value that is like put into society in some way. Like if most people actually, if it was actually thought by most people that it actually looks normal to have, like, you can see visible pockets in like skinny jeans, then there wouldn't be an issue. But I feel like skinny jeans, when they were first even invented, they were like the look was invented for there to not be a pocket there. But if maybe the look of the skinny jean was originally invented so that it inherently included there being like a pocket that you could kind of see, then I think it might be different today.
Well, I don't think it matters like what it like how it's invented. I think it's just like whatever exists, and if people like the look, they like the look. Now there can be societal pressures, but usually it's just based on what happens to be happening.
What if, what if, just as a hypothetical here, what if there were, for example, there were these two kinds of skinny jeans that were invented, and one of
Mhm.
them had the pockets and one of them didn't, and the ones without the pockets, or like with really tiny pockets, were what was getting more attention from like men, because
Mhm.
most women want attention from men because they're like straight.
Mhm.
So let's just say, hypothetically, that's what
Mhm.
happened. That like men were more often finding the ones with no pockets just more visually appealing. So then those were the ones that were getting the women who wore them more attention.
Yeah.
So they started to gravitate their buying towards the one with no pockets
Mhm.
because of that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
hypothetically, that's men, that's like a pressure on the women from men, almost, in a way.
No, 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 no. It's a decision on women to choose that they would rather not have pockets and attract men than to attract less men and have pockets. That's just a personal, like the men aren't deciding like I want to pressure this. They're looking and going, "Ooh, her butt looks good." And then he just feels that way, and that's just a natural feeling. You watch a movie, you like it, you eat ice cream and you have a favorite flavor. You look at somebody wearing clothes and you think like I can't stop
Well,
staring
okay,
at
so
that.
well, see,
You're
that's
just
the thing. I guess so that's where we're defining pressure differently. I'm not defining pressure quite in that same way where it's like I'm pressuring you. It's more of like it's like a um what's the word I'm looking for? Like a consequence. It's like a pressure via consequences. Like, these are the consequences, so I'm being sort of like pushed to do this
yeah.
other thing because I want this attention from men. It to me, it's still kind of a bit of like a social pressure.
Maybe, but I guess the thing that I would want to know at that point is a bad thing happening? Is something happening that should
Wait, wait,
change, and what is that?
let me give a different example.
Okay.
Body hair on
I was
women.
just gonna give that example.
Yeah, this
Mhm.
okay, so this one, okay, listen. This one's
I'm with you.
very personal for me.
Mhm.
Okay. I stopped shaving my legs a few years ago, and I don't think I'll ever shave them again.
Oh, cool.
Um, but it took a long time to get there, and there was a lot of fear involved. When you are a girl, when you're young, you are pressured by your oftentimes your mother and your parents
Mm.
to start shaving. There are some I've heard of scenarios where like a young girl doesn't want to start shaving and her like she's pressured to, she's like no you have to do it or I've seen like Reddit posts where like a mom was just like you're not going out like that like you haven't shaved your legs or whatever
Okay.
like something like that.
Can I
um
comment? Can I comment on a few things real quick before you go
yeah.
on, just so I don't forget them? Okay.
Mhm.
Couple things. Moms can be bad, dads can be bad, humans can be bad. So there are going to be moms that like sign their kids up for beauty pageants, and those people suck. So some people will be moms that will do what you're talking about. So that exists, and that sucks. Okay. Another thing. Me and my wife, we had a foreign exchange student from Thailand about, I don't know, like maybe 8 years ago. And she was a sophomore in high school. And I don't know if this is a Thailand thing, but I don't know if they shave their legs in Thailand. But, anyways, she got made fun of at the school she went to here for the leg thing. She came home and she told us about it. It was really sad or whatever. And so I can imagine that even if people are all about their kids, like having freedoms to do whatever they want and not feeling pressure, if there is something that becomes what's thought of as what everybody does in society and they don't want their kids to get made fun of, they might encourage them to do the normal thing. It's a bummer. I don't know if it's a bad thing, but like, for example, if my son said that he wanted to wear a dress to school, I would say, like, I don't care what anybody does. Men can wear dresses, women can do whatever they want, but I don't want you to get made fun of. You're at an age where your feelings could get really hurt. I don't know if this is a good idea. Now, my son's almost 16, so I probably wouldn't say much. But if he was 12 or something, I would be more worried about him getting picked on. And so, even though I wouldn't want our society to have this kind of standard, I would view this as one of the things. I don't know if I'd view leg shaving as that way, but I guess I'm pointing out cases where maybe a parent might encourage something because of its popularity. So
You know,
anyways.
I get what you're coming from, but for me, I'm trying to go back more to the root of why it started to begin with, and
Mhm.
that's men. Like listen, like
Ish.
there are so like many men who call body hair on a woman disgusting. The
Mhm.
comments that people get, like they're any post where a woman, even if she's a very attractive in every other way, is just like, yeah, I decided to just like be me and just stop like shaving my legs or whatever because like I just don't like to do it. Like I just like why should I have to do something I don't like to do? And we'll get just blasted about it, like of just being like ugly or like oh good luck you'll never find someone.
Mm.
Um, like no one's gonna want you, like things like and worse things.
Mhm.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, okay, so here's a couple things. So for one, the internet's full of wild, crazy people, and there
Okay,
will be people that will.
wait, stop.
Okay.
One other thing.
Yeah, you're good.
I have to take this to the real world. Okay.
Okay.
Um, there was one point where so I had experimented at first with not shaving my legs for a whole summer one year. This was in college, and I had not met Jeremy yet, and
Mhm.
or we weren't like dating yet. Like we kind of knew each other at work, and then the winter rolled around, and then it was gonna be getting warm soon, and me and Jeremy were just starting to like talk, and I hadn't shaved my legs yet, and I went through this whole mental thing in my head of like I have to shave my legs. I don't know if it's gonna like completely turn him off. I don't want to ruin my chances with him, So I went through this whole mind process and I decided to shave my legs because I just didn't want to risk it, right? And so me and Jeremy, we kind of started dating, and then this is summer, and so this is not too long later. But we went with his friend. So me, him, and his friend Steve, and I think Steve's girlfriend at the time was with us, but she's not important. We went to Six Flags and we were waiting online for a ride, and there was a woman. I think she was probably in her like late teens or like early 20s or something, but she was there in like, she might have been in shorts or a skirt or whatever, and she didn't have her legs shaved. And Jeremy's friend Steve kind of like nudges them and kind of like makes them look, and they both like chuckle at it and like to in a in a like laughing at it sort of way, like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean.
Yeah.
And just the way, like, I know that online people are way more explicitly vocal with their opinions, but these
Mhm.
opinions are real in the real world. They're just maybe not as explicitly vocalized. But
Yeah.
the reaction of like like, oh wow, ew, look at that. Like that happens in real life. And like the way that made me feel, 'cause I had not told Jeremy that I had like not shaved my legs the summer before. And the
Mhm.
way that made me feel, it felt like they were, like, laughing at me, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, definitely. I get that. Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
so I
okay.
wanted to bring it to the real world because I really don't want
Yeah.
you to just, like, ride on, but online is
Well,
crazy.
I just like to point out different elements. I like to like show. Anyways, look at all the different things. So yeah, online people are crazy or whatever. Now, another thing I'd want to point out is that it does happen both ways. It might be more so one way than another. But if I could imagine being in a car with two women, somebody I'm dating and then a friend or whatever. And then we look outside, it's summertime. Guy has his shirt off and his back is just the hairiest back or whatever, that they would like start making fun of him or whatever. We do have things in our society where there are norms. There's things that people like. But more importantly, we have assholes in our society, and some people that are good people just do these normal things. I'm sure Jeremy is a really nice person, and maybe he never stopped to think of like, why should I make fun of somebody because of their body hair or whatever.
Well, yeah,
and
yeah.
and so these things happen. But I would say that the idea that somebody doesn't like something doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. So like, let's say we took
But
this to a
it's bad and
hypothetical.
it's not, these ideas are not inherent. They're not necessarily natural. They were given to us by the society we grow up in.
I don't think so. Let me try to explain that, because I think it's more so when you have options and you're honest, it can lead to outcomes. So let's say that we had this we were doing this study and we had this like hypothetical island, and we had 200 people, kids that we just dropped off on this island, and somehow they didn't die off. And there was 100 boys and 100 girls. They didn't grow up in our society or any other society, and they're just growing up, and maybe we left a whole bunch of stuff for them, so they have a whole bunch of clothes and various different things. So first of all, if there were colors of various different things and we were able to ask them like each what their favorite color was, there's a good chance that whoever naturally became the most popular girl or girls out of the 100 that are there, that liked like if they just happen to like orange the most or whatever, there will be some people that will claim their favorite color is orange just because of those other popular people, because that kind of thing just naturally happens where people gravitate towards other people. They aren't honest about different things. And so that's how something like color could work. Now, as these kids grow up and they start becoming attracted to each other, there could be, if randomly one or two of the girls out of the 100 on this island shaved their legs. And so the other ones had hair on their legs, and two of them shaved them. If the men, the 100 boys or men or whatever on this island, see the girls that have the shaped legs, and they just happen, let's just assume that they naturally find that attractive, they prefer that. Let's say 80 of the 100 prefer it and 20 of the 100 prefer the hair. Okay. And it is known on this island that 80 of them find it attractive. None of them are making fun of the ones with hairy legs. They just were asked by somebody, like each of them were asked by one of the people, do you find it attractive? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And 80 of them said, oh yeah, I'm more attracted to that. And then when the other 98 girls heard about this, maybe let's say that most of them, all but 10 of them, decided they were going to shave their legs because they think, oh, This doesn't seem like it would be hard to do. I'm not claiming that it's not hard to do. I'm just saying, let's say that they think that, and they happen to be sexual people. They happen to be straight, and they think like, oh, if this will make boys like me, in the same way that men like to build muscle because they think ladies might like that muscle or whatever. They do this thing. I would say that if as long as we don't have people doing the mean thing that are pointing and laughing and making fun of people in this society, where now 90 of the 100 girls there are shaving their legs, and almost all of that 90 is based on just knowing the preferences of men. Would you agree with me in this hypothetical scenario that there's not a bad thing happening here? This societal like desire to do it isn't bad.
That's tough. I have to. I think I have to think about it more. Like, I think we should
Well,
come back to this
yeah.
because I'm actually out of time
I
myself.
think about this stuff way too much. So,
No,
and
no,
it's a
no,
lot to think about for the first
no,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have to think about this one more
Yeah.
honestly before I could even give an answer.
For sure. Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. I got to go, and I'm sorry for keeping you so long. But it was great talking, and we should set something up soon.
Yeah, let's set something up soon, and we can talk more about even like this topic if you want. I gotta think about it.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. All right. Take care.
All right, yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.